That's unbelievable. On to another mad one. This is another little quick recap, but Sweet Bobby. Oh my God. I just saw that yesterday. I just saw Sweet Bobby yesterday. Oh my God. This is sweet. Oh my God. Catfish.
I'm sure everyone's been in that position where you've had a message from someone you vaguely know. I wasn't online looking for love at all.
This is one of the most complex, convoluted, sophisticated, screwed up catfishing cases that I've ever come across.
He was always picking fights with me, constantly picking fights with me. You know, he'd be very horrible and then extremely nice for short periods of time. I was living in fear.
Someone can be coercively controlled in numerous different ways by someone that they have never met.
It was like the responsibility for Bobby's life was in my hands.
So Bobby was at the heart of this scam, but he was only one character.
And it went on for a very long time, and there were many characters, let's call them, that were slowly introduced and legitimized over a long period of time.
The catfisher used more than 60 fake accounts.
In real life, if someone knows you and decides to use the internet to target you, you've got no hope.
I thought you loved me. I love you,
can't be too
but I can't do this.
She was a bit too gullible, man. She was very gullible.
I'm head of investigations at Tortoise Media, and I'm the host and reporter of the Sweet Bobby podcast.
My name's Harkirat Kaur Asi, and most people know me as Kirat. I'm a freelance marketing consultant, and I also do some radio and work in the media. So Alexei had seen my witness statement and was intrigued about what had happened to me.
It was obvious that even if part of the witness statement was true, that this was an extraordinary story. Why had the police taken no interest in Kirat's case? And was a crime actually committed?
For some reason, the perpetrator deliberately targeted me. I don't know why.
Kirat was quite nervous about telling her story, but she had a determination to tell it. So quite early on in the process, I teamed up with a colleague of mine at Tortoise called Claudia.
I'm Claudia Williams. I'm a reporter and producer at Tortoise. My first impression of Kirat was that she was really warm, and you could just tell that she was really keen to get this story out there.
So the way the scam started was like this. In 2009, Kirat was first contacted by a guy called JJ, and he was a boyfriend of Kirat's younger cousin, Simran.
I'm sure everyone's been in that position where you've had a message from someone you vaguely know, and also there's the fact that, you know, I'm not going to be rude to somebody who's in my extended family.
Through JJ, she was introduced to his brother, Bobby and Kirat started this friendship.
Bobby contacted me to thank me for being a big sister figure to his younger brother and to tell me how big a role I played in his life. For me was a bit overwhelming, because I just thought he was just somebody online who's dating my cousin, you know. I'm just kind of a polite person.
So after Bobby and Kirat start speaking together on Facebook, for a while it's all really normal. They talk once every couple of weeks.
So Facebook at that time was very different to how we know it now. He used to send messages like a pen pal almost. There'd be great big long messages. It wasn't like instant messaging like you expect it to be now.
They tell each other about their situations, their families.
So it was quite gradual.
What a level
And he would
of
talk
depth.
about things and, you know, say how happy he was.
Deep.
He got a kid on the way. He was a cardiologist. Bobby and I were from a South Asian community that's lived in Kenya. That community is really close-knit. Bobby was slowly establishing a friendship with me, an online friendship.
Catfishing is when someone creates a fake online persona to try and lure someone into a relationship or a friendship, to trick them basically.
So at some point, a few
fuckers.
months into Kirat and Bobby's friendship, something really weird happens, which if it had gone slightly differently could have meant that the whole scam fell apart.
I was at a hen weekend in Brighton
And on Saturday night, at about 2 o'clock in the morning, in a club, she sees Bobby on the other side of the room. And she goes up to him and she says, "Hey Bobby, it's Kirat. How you doing?"
He acknowledged me, but he looked really confused, and it was kind of like 1:30, 2 o'clock maybe.
And she thinks, okay, Bobby's just drunk, I'll just leave it, I'll forget about it. And she goes back to her group of friends.
It was a strange moment, but it was like, you know, he exists, and he acknowledged it was him, and I let it go.
If it had been 3 hours earlier, if it had been a meeting in a cafe where they could have had a proper conversation, it wouldn't have taken much
fell apart.
for the whole scam to have fallen apart. But something then happens that's completely shocking. Bobby has family in Kenya, and when he's visiting them, he's shot. And it's really serious, and he goes into hospital, and eventually he dies.
And my cousin was actually there at the time, and she was reporting things back to me as well. Every South Asian person from Kenya will have had somebody in their family that's been affected by something like that.
And at this point, Kirat doesn't really know what to think, because she's still not that close to him. But what is totally shocking is that a few months later,
my cousin phoned me at work to tell me that Bobby's alive.
that he's in witness protection.
What do you say? Somebody says to you, someone's come back to life.
So for the next year or so, we have this strange situation where Bobby is in hospital in New York and in various other places. He's really constricted in what he can say,
what a level
he can call, because he's
to
in
go
this witness
to.
protection program. Over this period of time, he and Kirat become closer, and Bobby's condition isn't good.
What a level to
He's
go
suffering
to, man.
from strokes and blood clots and various other medical ailments. He's kind of on death's door, and Kirat feels like she can be a support to him.
There were times when he'd had a serious operation, or he'd had a stroke, or something had happened.
Kirat wasn't just speaking to Bobby, she was speaking to his medical consultant, to his friend, to his ex-wife, to a whole bunch of other people who were all confirming and supporting what Bobby was telling Kirat.
All
It
the
was
same
a kind
person.
of confirmation loop.
Around that point was when he told me he was in love with me. I had like people talking at me like, he really is in love with you. I think he's always been in love with you. And my cousin would be like, yeah, it makes so much sense.
Oh my God, the level
Bobby
of
and
it.
Kirat entered into a romantic relationship, I think, on Valentine's Day in 2015.
I knew he wasn't going to live long. I'd already been told he's not going to last beyond July that year. So for me, it was just about making his final months comfortable. This is somebody who respects me, treats me really well.
And at that point in the relationship, Bobby was living in the US, and so it was a long-distance relationship.
They would speak to each other for hours over Skype. They would even fall asleep to each other over Skype. One of the convenient things about Bobby's medical problems was that in one of his operations, his vocal cords were damaged.
It was the case, so he couldn't speak.
Red
Bobby
flag.
would be typing his
That's
thoughts,
a red
and
flag.
Kirat would be sending little audio notes to him.
So this is where she's
I
gullible.
missed you so much today, sweets. So much. I really hope you're not too down.
And on top of that, the fact that he was under witness protection allowed the catfisher
she's
to
very
convince
gullible.
Kirat that there were even more restrictions on
Anyone would know, like, if you're sending voice notes and they're always just sending, and it's convenient that you've not ever heard their voice, you've never FaceTimed or nothing like that, that you should know, man. That's a red flag.
He was able to communicate.
She was very
People
gullible.
questioned me, why didn't you do a video call? We weren't allowed to. We weren't even allowed to. I could share photos of me with him, but he wasn't allowed to have photos of himself.
The relationship
what's the
started off
story?
well, but as it progressed,
What's
Bobby
the
became
story?
increasingly controlling.
Literally like challenge us, like, I'm going to kill myself, what are you going to do? It was literally like that. He always needed that reassurance.
It must have taken up hours of her life. Like, it must have taken over her life.
You know, if I put my head back in that time, definitely I wasn't me, and I'd say it to him. I'm not myself. I don't recognise myself as a person.
Coercive control is when someone uses threats or maybe manipulation to isolate a victim and to gain control over them. He was using illness as a way of manipulating her.
He had a massive stroke while he was talking to me. That was the first of many. It was like the responsibility for Bobby's life was in my hands. I'd wanted to leave the relationship so many times. It was just so messy. I would manage to have my day at work. Then as soon as I'd get home, the pings used to come in quite regularly.
My God.
Kirat became increasingly isolated. She lost weight, she lost friends.
She had to quit her job because of the stress. During this time period when Bobby was in hospital, Kirat became closer and closer to her younger cousin, Simran. Simran actually went on a couple of work trips to New York where she saw Bobby.
My own cousin was the only person that was really talking to me. I was an absolute wreck by this time. I lost track of the number of times he said he was coming to the UK and I'd get ready for him to come. He was making out like he was holding on just to see me that once. And he'd be like, I just want to die with you next to me.
This time next week, in a week, you could be here. Wow. Wow.
She was so
I'm
gullible.
deciding what I should be wearing to pick you up. I'm so excited.
Man,
And every
she
time
proper fell
he
for
had an
it.
excuse about why they couldn't meet.
Broken my heart. Broken, shattered my dreams.
Shattered my dreams.
I thought you loved me. I love you, but I can't do this.
This is brutal.
I can't be pushed aside while you think when I'm supposed to be a part of your life.
She was telling her family that she was going to see Bobby every day. And then she was just driving around and around and sitting in a car on her own because she couldn't face telling her family the truth, that Bobby still wouldn't let her see him.
I used to
My
often go for drives to
God,
calm me
man.
down, have my hands on the steering wheel so I couldn't text back. Because he was always picking fights with me. He was constantly picking fights with me.
In 2018, she hired a private investigator, and he came back and he gave her an address in Brighton. So one day, Kirat has another fight with Bobby.
And I just went for a drive. And I got to the M25.
And then she sees signs towards Brighton.
Do I go home? And I just thought, screw it, let's go.
And she went to his house and she knocked on the door.
When he eventually opened the door, his, what I thought ex-wife came out with his son, who I treated as my stepson.
And that's
Unbelievable.
the start of how the scam started to collapse.
At that
Oh,
point,
shit.
my world had come falling apart. Going to the Brighton house, I recognised where some of those photos had been taken of him. So, you know, you think, he's been lying to me.
She thought that she'd caught him out in a lie.
His wife was like, go and speak to her. And, you know, he was like, my sister's inside. I'm like, yes, your sister. I knew her too, you know, it was just like...
Damn, see how big
At that moment,
this shit was
Kirat
bad.
is seeing someone that she's spent the last 8 years in a friendship and then a relationship with. And Bobby is looking at someone who he's never seen before in his life.
I literally went out to the pavement, I was heaving, I was like...
It's scary, man.
retching, you know, it was just...
It's so fucking scary. This shit is like very creepy, man. It's very sinister. Like, what an evil thing to do.
Terrified. And I thought I wanted to speak to him by myself and he wouldn't speak to me.
Kirat is confused and distraught.
What an evil
Doesn't
thing to
know
do, innit?
what's going on.
Fucking hell.
So Kirat drives back to London, and I think that she can hardly see the road because she's crying so much. And she's speaking to Simran on the phone all the time, trying to work out what's happened.
That was the end of that relationship, regardless. I didn't know what was coming a couple of days later.
She took it to the police and she filed a report with them. And at that stage, she was in touch with her cousin, Simran, who had been with her for this whole story. They'd been close, they'd been talking about Bobby. And at that stage, she found out that actually some of the details that Simran had given her were lies. That Simran had said she'd met Bobby, and in fact, that wasn't true.
And she told me like she didn't see him in New York, because that's what he'd told her to say. So I was angry with her.
And then the next day, it all comes crashing down. Kirat is upstairs in her bedroom, and she sees Simran come up in a car. Simran's wearing these tracksuit bottoms. She looks like she hasn't slept. And there's something in Kirat's mind that finds that weird.
Oh, shit.
But then when she came, she confessed to it all being her.
Unbelievable. her own cousin for 10 years was catfishing her. Her own little cousin was catfishing her for over 10 years. It's unbelievable. It's so evil, with over 60 fake profiles. Unbelievable.
Why would you?
Why?
Like, she's your baby sister. I called her my baby sister. You know, like, you wouldn't even imagine somebody would go that far.
It was Simran all along. She had been Bobby, she had been all the different characters, and for over a decade, she had been pretending to be this person online and creating a false relationship with her cousin.
What Kirat told me
so shocking.
was that she didn't really express much emotion when she was doing so. She didn't say sorry, she wasn't crying,
Evil.
she didn't seem to be particularly upset. When you think about a typical catfisher, you tend to think of someone that's kind of lonely, but with Simran, she didn't fit any of that profile. She was a high flyer, she was head girl at her school.
So her
had a
cousin
great
was jealous
job
or something?
in a great firm in the city. On the outside, there wasn't any reason why she would have done this. And that's what makes this whole story so odd.
Why?
I wasn't online looking for love at all. I was quite a busy, mind my own business kind of person. And people need to understand, if you're targeted, you just got no hope. Especially if it's someone that you trust.
Yeah, but you've got to really try to be less gullible. I think her failures are with the phone calls. There was no phone calls. There was no, in 10 years, come on. Like, you never saw FaceTime. There was always some sort of excuse. Very manipulative, but I think she's very gullible.
So,
after Kirat found out that her cousin was the perpetrator of this, she went back to the police and she again tried to get an investigation going. She tried to get some kind of accountability, and really the police did nothing.
She was the one that had to
What
go
can
to
you
the
do?
police to make all the efforts to try and get accountability, whereas Simran seemed to have moved on. She got a promotion at her work, she was going on holiday. Kirat was still in a really bad place, and Simran seemed to have got away with it.
they didn't get it.
Fucked,
They told me I
man.
wasn't the victim.
That's fucked.
Real Bobby was. Real Bobby didn't have a clue what was going on.
I think it's really shocking that she was ignored, that she wasn't taken seriously and it was dismissed.
Even though catfishing isn't a standalone criminal offence, what Simran did to Kirat was arguably a crime. Why had the police taken no interest
You can't let
in
people
Kirat's
get away
case?
with
I
this.
just can't understand how people don't see this as a crime. There were so many things that were wrong.
Yeah.
So Kirat's story isn't over. She's talking to the police at the moment, and that might end up in the investigation into Simran being reopened.
I think this is a really good example of legislation being behind social media.
We need to change perceptions in society. The police and the law needs to catch up with what's going on the internet.
Developments in the way we interact and the way we behave towards one another, it changes at such a fast rate.
Why are people asking, well, you know, what was wrong with you? There was nothing wrong with me. What was wrong with the perpetrator? I hope it never happens to you. I hope it never happens to anyone that you love.
Yeah, it's really evil. That's really fucking dark, man. That's really, really evil, fathers. Like how if your own cousin for 10 years. Unbelievable. Honestly, when I saw that, shocked. I was utterly shocked. I couldn't believe it. But yeah, fathers, that's all I got for now.